हाँ
तो मैं कुछ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, यू आर लाइफ।
लाइव है अपन. Okay. So hi, welcome back everyone. So in this lecture, we are going to move a little bit forward. Like in previous lecture, we
हाँ
studied with
ऐसे।
the basic program structure of Java, right? So in this lecture, we are going to study about operators, variables, and we are going to see if else and other conditional statements, right? We're not going to touch loops today. If we have some time left, then sure we would be in a touching while or do while, but we would try to wind up the session in 1 hour, and we would finish in about till in a ternary operator and switch cases, right? So before I begin, first of all, I want you guys to I want to thank you guys for your cooperation, and I've been active on group and I've seen you guys are literally participating well, so that's really great. Kudos to you all. So and thank you all for filling that feedback form. That's really appreciated. I'm seeing all your feedbacks, and we are getting a great response, so thank you for that. And one more kind of question that has been asked with for me, like it's about the assignments, right? So I'm here to make important announcement regarding assignments for now. It's that, and in every lecture you're going to get certain assignments, right? So that you can ensure that your practice is going in right direction, right? You're solving those assignments properly, and so that you're in a learning that you have learned in class, it is and practically implemented in real world, right? So assignments are designed in that way. They are not some huge projects, they're just code spinlets, right? So you just need to write that in a certain part, right? That's it, right? So they are pretty easy to solve, they're not that much difficult. So I wish you all the best for those assignments. In last lecture I gave you assignment where you have to take a input from the console, right? The input should be the name, and then print a message with that name, right? Name and the message, right? So that was your assignment for previous lecture. That was standard input and output. So and many of you submitted great solutions, I appreciate them, and they were really awesome, right? So now what you have to do is, now you copy and paste, and you basically commit your codes to GitHub and send those links to me, right? Send that GitHub link to me, and when you are submitting those assignments, make sure you create your own repository, a different repository that's named by default.java, right? That's the event name. So so that it's easier for us to access, and just send that repository link to us, right? And at the end of this course you would be also given a sample project to complete, that would be related to real world problem solving. So when we would be looking all at those assignments and those projects, we would be grading you, and then we would be giving you excellence certificates. Based on that, 10 students would get excellence certificate. So make sure that you're doing assignments properly. There is no time limit for assignments, right? And you can do it whenever you want, but make sure that you are practicing well, right? You're it's basically totally up to you. This is not any college that you have to submit before or after that certain date. No, there's no such thing. Just make sure that it's available to us when we are assessing your assignments, right? Which would be at the end of the course, right? So but make sure that you are consistent, you are practicing well. And basically that's it. If you have any other question regarding assignments, then please write in the comment section. And if you have any doubt regarding previous session, please do that too. I mean, do we have any doubts regarding assignments or in previous lecture?
No, no, no. Right now we have no doubts. I- There is no doubt. I think. Mm,
Okay, so and let's move forward and let's begin our today's syllabus. And for today, okay, Appleman has a query. Yeah, please ask. Okay, so and I have explained a lot. I have talked about a lot on this topic that why you should go for Java when there is Python and like Python is like on the boom over here, right? And there's AI, ML, and Python is picking up the pace, right? And well, in short, I would say that Python basically is an interpreter language. Python and Java both are separate, right? They both are designed for their own purposes, right? For it basically depends on you that what career you are choosing. If you are choosing as a developer, then Java is the language for you. If you are thinking about AI and ML, then Python is the language for you. Also, not forgetting that Java also has capability to use big data analysis and do all that, but and the Python is more preferred, right? Python is a lot easier to understand, and Java is better in terms of security, in terms of platform independence. If you want to go in detail, we have video on this channel only, so go watch that. Go watch our previous session. We have talked about in about 15 minutes. We have talked why Java before Python, and in about 1 hour we have went into detail Python versus Java in our lecture in there 2 3 sessions back, so you can go there. And yeah, Python is much better. Python is definitely better, but I won't say like better than Java actually. And if you don't know, Java is most demanded language in 2019, and obviously, and I'm sure it's in 2020 as well. I haven't seen the data of 2020, but in 2019 it was definitely the most in demand language, right? So and there's that also, right? But in industry, 90% is Python. No, it's not like that. There are many developers in who are using Java, who are preferring Java. Basically, the whole community is divided into two, Python and Java, right? So that's why Java is preferred by a community and Python is preferred by another community. Java has a huge community, so basically you get a lot of help in Java, right? So if there is any other doubt, please ask. C is definitely in a mother of all languages, but you can't use C for in many purposes, right? And you can't use C in website development. You can't use C in GUIs. You can use C in game development. So in every language has its own limitations, right? You have to research first on which language that you want to learn, and then you can move forward. You can, but in a they but it's not preferred. See, you can use any language you want, but it's not preferred. The preferred one is Java in terms of game development. And if I talk about the basic level, if I talk about if we're comparing Python, Java, and C, and then Java is more preferred. And obviously, if we go beyond, then C Sharp is there, Unreal is there, OpenGL. There's a lot of other stuff, but and for if we're comparing C, Python, and Java, then Python is preferred for AI and ML, big data analysis, and Java is preferred for web development and Android development. Which language is more useful in future? Well, it depends upon what career you want to choose. If you are willing to be a developer, then in Java you should learn And if you want to go for AML and artificial intelligence in augmented reality, then Python is in a way to start, right? So moving on to our topic for today. All right. So today, and we are going to discuss first of all data types, variables, and we are going to discuss about operators. So, in previous lecture, we studied little bit, and we studied the program structure of Java. So today we are going to discuss a little bit further. Right. So starting with the data variables, I hope that you can see my screen. Right. Wait, you can't. Can you? Amit, I am on backstage for sharing my screen. Can you please put me live? Great. All right. So, if we talk about, first of all, we would be talking about data types. So, there are basically two data types that are primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Basically, if you see, if you look at this graph over here, then this graph is explaining all about data types, right? If you learn this graph, then there's nothing else that you need to know about data types. In a it's all fine with this graph, right? So in term, if I talk about primitive data types are basically divided into four categories that are integer, float, character, and boolean, right? So integers are those data types which are integer values, right? You can't store whole values there, but you can store integer values. And again, integer is also divided into four subcategories, that is byte, short, int, long, right? And if you have used any other programming language, then definitely you might know about these. If I talk about float, and if I talk about float data types, then we have float and double, right? And then character has character and boolean, and there's boolean type, right? So talking about in detail, with those in these primitive data types, first of all, like in basically if I talk about integer data types, right? So in integer data types, there are the byte basically stores one byte, so it has memory allocation of one byte. So the data that you are storing would be strictly in the range of -1 to 8 to -2 plus 1 to 7, right? Amit, why my screen is not visible? Am I still at the backstage? Just wait a minute. I think there's some error. Amit, bring me on live. I'm still on backstage for my laptop. Tell me if you can see my screen. Great. So, yeah, so I was talking about this graph. Sorry for that interruption. And I was talking about this graph over here. If you, this graph basically contains everything that you need in for data type, right? So, they are basically two data types: primitive, non-primitive data types. In primitive data types, there is integer, float, and a character and boolean, right? Integer basically stores only integer values. It doesn't store whole value, right? It doesn't store characters like a b c, right? It only stores 1 2 3 4 and up to that, and a zero and negative values, right? So integer, if I talk about integer for now, integers are basically again divided into four more categories. That is byte, that is short, that is int, and long, right? So they what is the point that they differ, right? What is the point of creating so much data types, right? So basically every data type uses has its own memory allocation, right? Byte has memory allocation of 1 byte, and a short has memory allocation of 2, and an integer has memory allocation of 4, and long has memory allocation of 8, right? If you can switch, if I can switch the slide, you can see the memory allocation right over here. So, the range differs according to the memory allocation, byte being the shortest from -128 to +127. Then long has its own range. In order to calculate the range, there is a formula given, but hardly anyone is going to use it, so there's no point. In real world, basically, why are you using this short? Why are you using int? Can anyone tell me this? Why you are using short, int, long? Why not just simply declare one data type, that's int? Great, right? Simple, saving memory, right? Because see, when you're creating suppose a variable, and it doesn't require 4 bytes, it only requires 2 bytes, right? And the number is in the range of tens, right? Then you would use byte as the preferred data type. But if you are going for a long number, billion, trillions, then long is the way to go, right? So, I would be explaining this with a simple code. Let me open my compile. Yeah, not this one. I would use another code that's on my GitHub. Guys, I'm using IntelliJ IDE. You can use any IDE that you want, it doesn't matter. You can use Eclipse, NetBeans, anything. If you're not even using IDE, you are coding on Notepad, and that's also fine. Just make sure that you're practicing consistently, that you're exploring more and more, right? So, here I have declared some basic variables, and with the basic data types, right? And I have explained program structure in previous class. If you want to explain, if you want to learn in detail, then go to the previous lecture, or I'm going to explain in short right now. Everything that we code in Java is coded in the class main, right? So this is the main class right over here, right? And everything that we code is in the main. There is main method, right? This main method is executed whenever you run the code. This main method is executed. That's why this main method, and we write everything in main method, right? Main method has four its types: public, static, void, and there's a string declared. So I've explained each and everything in previous lecture. Go check it out. And so coming back to in data types, we have byte data type, right? We have a byte, we have short, int declared right over here, and we would be coming to float later. But first of all, let's see the memory location, right? And if I assign the value of suppose 10, then byte is preferred, right? Then byte is perfectly fine. But if I, let's say I have a number which would be having value 150, right? It's showing an error. Why? Because byte doesn't has that much memory allocation. It has only memory allocation up to 128, right? So in a, it's showing me an error, and it's showing me a suggestion that cast byte. What cast byte would do is, basically, let me, what cast byte would do, right? So first of all, let me run this code and delete this override. Okay, and run this. Yeah. Okay. I forgot to mention a print statement. Print a. It is showing minus 106. But if I didn't cast it byte, it was showing an error. Why is that? So basically what cast byte does is, you have in a right wrote 150, it would now go beyond zero, right? And if it is exceeding 120 and 128, so it would then go beyond zero and start decreasing. That's why it's showing minus 106, right? So that is how you can use byte. And then there is short and int. Integer in a it int basically has four memory allocations. So the preferred one is int. Basically, when you would be writing code in real world, the more you would be using is short, int, and long, int being in the majority of times. If I talk about float, that so float basically stores whole value, right? So if I say like float has memory allocation of 4 and double has memory allocation of 8, right? So in float, and I have suppose created a variable I, and it has value 2. Now let's print this, right? Let's see what is the difference. So not I. It is showing a point over there, right? It is showing a decimal value. Although if I print an integer won't be showing this decimal value, but in this float would be showing, right? So let's type byte only, right? There's no point of assigning the integer another value. You see, so basically in a float is storing whole numbers. That's why it's showing a decimal value right over there. Now, let's you all are familiar with basic mathematical operations. So I'm going to just add a mathematical operation over here, that is divide, right? So way in the operator that we use is in a slash. So let's create another variable. Let's say int, right? And its name is s, and I want to divide the value c with I, right? And first of all, assign something to c, otherwise it's going to show error. So let's say c is 10 and I is 2. Still, it's showing some error over here. Why is that? So, basically, the reason that it's showing an error is because you can't divide an integer with a float, right? You can't operate on an integer and float together. So in order to do that, you have to declare the variable which you are assigning that result to in a float, right? So if I declare this float over here, then voila, no error, right? So I'll just run this code now. Yeah, getting that. See, it's showing 5, right? So let's do some experiments over here. What do you say? Let's divide I by c, but again keep not keeping it float, keeping as integer. It's again going to show error because you can't do that, right? You can't divide a float with an integer. But can you add it? Let's see. You can, right? There is no issue in that. But can you multiply? You can. But can you divide? well, can you subtract? You can, but you can't divide. Why is that? In a comment, in comment box, why the only error is shown in a division but not in any other, in a, let's say, subtract or add? Why error is not showing there, right? So this was basics about primitive data types, right? Now you guys go practice it, and when this lecture is over, then you start practicing. You create few variables and assign a different data types to them, and then you run those codes and come up with errors, come up with different errors. That is the way to go. That's the way to learn programming, right? Now talking about non-primitive data types. Basically, what non-primitive data types are, they are basically they are basically string. They are basically in a character. Actually, sorry, I forgot to tell you about characters or and boolean. So basically, character stores only and a character data type. That's your alphabets and special characters, and boolean store true or false. So a boolean would be either a true or a false. Nothing else, right? So this is just basic on that. Now talking about again, talking about non-primitive data types. So like I said, string, array, they are the basics of non-primitive data types. They are non-primitive. And if I talk about classes, right, and objects, so they are also considered as non-primitive data types, right? Now talking about another data type, that is actually, it's a non-data type. It stores nothing, right? So when you're storing nothing, and it's called void. Just like in method main was called void. So that is the thing, and a void doesn't return anything. Integer returns an integer value, int returns an integer value, long returns an integer value, float returns an decimal value, a whole number. But a character returns a character. Boolean returns true or false. Void returns nothing. So that is an added advantage. And if you're creating a function which doesn't returns anything, then you can declare it as void, right? So moving next, if you have any issues in this, please ask. Okay, so let's move forward. Let's talk about not about talk about variables. And okay, and let's talk about variables first. Basically, how you're declaring in a variables, it's in a, like, just like I showed you now. There would be the type name, data type name, and then there would be name, right? And then you can assign value to it. And if you're not assigning a value, if you want a user to assign the value, then you have to declare it as a, and you can use in a scanner class and a scanner object. Non-primitive data types are again defined as class name and object, and in a same as with string and array, right? So now the thing that I want you to focus on is operators. Operators basically, any mathematical operation that we perform is does comes under operators, right? So we have a lot of operators over here in your exams in your school or college exams. You would be asked type of operators. So there are many type of operators. There's unary operator, there's arithmetic operator, shift operator, relational, bitwise, logical, ternary, assignment. So there, these are the types of operators. But don't learn it just because you want to crack any of your exams, but learn it to apply, right? So basically, if I let's learn through a code. You can go on GitHub, and you can copy all these codes over here, the example codes or assignment solutions are also uploaded right over there, right? So, and now talking about operators, and first of the first category is unary operator. So, and okay, and right. So, in basically, in what in a unary operator does is, in a unary operators are basically the in a plus in a x plus 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 or in a plus x x x. So, in a these are the unary operators over here: postfix, prefix, and we also have ternary operator over here, right? So, and if I talk about the coding part, and right over here, and let's take this integer and take this variable x. X has stored a value 10, and y has stored a value in a negative 10, right? And there is a boolean z. Z, I have assigned it true. The value is true. Now, in a I say print in a x plus plus, what's gonna do is it's gonna increase the value of x. Same does plus plus x. But what is the basic difference in these? The basic difference lies in that the x plus plus, that is postfix and prefix. Basically, the difference is that and when you're typing x plus plus, it's going to increase the value later, but going to print it first. So, and basically, and before execution of a statement, it's going to increase in plus plus x, and x plus plus is going to increase in after the execution, right? So if I run this code, so another value of x in first statement is 10, but in second statement it's 12, because if I talk about in this statement in line number 9, in line number 9, the x value was increased by 1, and in line number 2, it printed first, it printed the value of x first, that it was 10, and then it increased, right? Next, in the code came to line number 10. In line number 10, first increased the value, the 11 was increased to 12, and then the 12 was printed, right? So same goes with in a decrement operator as well. So it would first print, and then it would decrease in a line number 11, that is x minus minus. So x minus minus would, what it would do is it first would print the value which is of x, right? And then it would decrease it, right? So, and next I would be coming to the this operator, ternary operator. What it does is, and basically in oppose the value of x that is present right over there, right? So, and if it is an 11, that it will print minus 11, right? And same goes with y, and other operators, right? And next, coming to arithmetic operators. Basically, what arithmetic operators would be doing is, arithmetic operators are basic, are in a plus, minus, multiply, divide, and in a modulus. You might be knowing about all our arithmetic operators, but if I talk about modulus over here, modulus basically returns the remainder. So if I divide 5 by 2, then remainder would be 1. So it is going to print 1 over here, right? So, and next, coming to our shift operator. What shift operator does is, shift operator, you need to focus a little bit over here. Shift operator, what it does is, first of all, if I assign the values, let's say I want to in a left shift, right? So left shift 10 to 2 positions, right? What that does, basically what it does is it shifts, and it basically converts 10 into binary. So converting 10 into binary is 1010. Then the decimal place would be shifted by 2 towards left. So what it becomes is 10 and 101000, right? So that is 40. That's why it printed 40 over here, right? So if I talk about right shift does the same thing in opposite manner. It shifts the pointer towards right. So again, the 10 in a same example, 10 is in 1010, and if I shift decimal place by 2, then it would be 10, right? So 10 would be 2. That's why it has printed the value 2 over here. Then if I talk about logical operators are basically are and or. So in and or, in a, so basically in a, if you have seen the slash in your keyboard, that is or, and our and the and is our and operator, right? So in a or operator, basically if there we have given two statements and any of these two statement is true, then it's going to return true, right? But if any of these statement is false, and we are using AND operator, then basically for AND operator, both statement has to be true in order to result to be true. If any of these statement is false, it's going to not return the value, right? So that's why if I say take this example, n, m, o, and n, right? N is 1, m is 2, o is 9. So and I have declared a variable result over there, which is boolean, right? So a result would be n m. So if I talk about or operator there, n is definitely not greater than m. So this statement, n is greater than m, is false, right? So and o is greater than n, this statement is true. That's why the result would be true, right? So if I come to next line, let's line number 40. So in line number 40, again the same statement is copied. So and is this statement, the statement 1 is false, and in a statement 2 is true. But the because we are using AND operator, it would return false, right? So this was basics about operator, and you guys have asked some questions. Okay. Sorry, my net is lagging. It's not loading any comments. Okay, here we go. Yeah, saving memory, that's for sure, right? Every language has its own demand. You rightly said, Amit. What is difference between primitive and non-primitive? And so basically, the difference between primitive and non-primitive data types are primitive data types are already defined by the language, right? Non-primitive data types are those which we define. If I talk about in a array, if I talk about string, if I talk about any class, any object, these are these are the data types that we define, right? And let's take an example of scanner, right? We are defining that data type, and we are at liberty to use the create an object at whatever name that we want. Let it be s, let it be scan, let it be a, let it be b, let it be any name, right? We are at liberty to create in that. But integer, float, byte, these are already defined by the system, right? So that's why it's in a little bit that's the basic difference. Now Harsh Mishra is asking how 40. Okay, and how 40 in left shift operator, right? So let's first of all I'm sharing my screen. Yeah. binary, what when a left shift operator or any shift operator does is it converts the first number into binary, right? So the binary of 10, what is it? 1010, right? Now imagine that there is a decimal value over here and we have zero zero zeros, right? So now what left shift operator would do is it would shift this decimal towards left, right? So and we have ordered it to shift by 2, right? So it would shift by 2. It is 1 2, right? Now remove everything that is on the left side of decimal, remove everything, and we are left with 101000, right? So this is 40 in binary, this is 40, that's why it printed 40. So same goes with right shift operator. Again there is a decimal and there are zero values beyond decimal. What a right shift operator does is it shifts the decimal value towards right. So on my right, and we can say okay, and it skipped 110 and then it skipped 1, so there would be decimal value right over here and not after this, right? So this is basically what you then again remove everything beyond decimal and you are left with 10, right? So this is how this is a 40 does. I hope I answered your question, Harsh. If you guys have any question, please ask. Okay, I don't see any questions right now. So if anything pops up, please. Now, talking about okay, let me ask a question, right? Let me ask a question. Let me give you another assignment for it, right? So basically, this is your assignment. I'm going to share your screen. Take a screenshot of this. Take a screenshot of this assignment and solve it when you're practicing, right? So basically you have to create an application where you have to help an old painter. Basically what this painter does is it gets dozens of order in rectangular sheets, right? So to paint those rectangular sheets, so what you have to do is you have to create an algorithm so that he could find out how much paint do I need for suppose a dozen of sheets, right? So this is your basic question. Write this and upload it on your GitHub. Now the data that you have been given is the paint used per centimeter square is 1 ml. Use this data and solve this. It's really basic, it's nothing, it's like we have done these questions in mathematics class in 7th class, right? So this is really easy for you guys. So do this and start when you're like right after this session, start doing this, right? Any question in assignment or anything, please give assignment question. Yeah, sure, I would be forwarding this to the group. Any more questions? Come on. Okay, so I guess no questions for now. Okay, so next topic that we are going to discuss is in a control statement. So And let's assume that, let's take a real life example, right? So in real life, your mother might have told you that if you score 90% in your boards, then you would get this thing, right? Let's say bike, let's say mobile, right? So, and we all have seen these scenarios where we have been given a state, we have been given a condition, and if that condition is fulfilled, then we get some result, or we get something else, or if that condition is not fulfilled, then you get this, right? So if you get 90% in your boards, then you get a bike, or else you get no food, right? So this is the basic in conditional control statement, if I talk about if else, right? So let's show you on diagram. So this is the basic in a flow chart in a programming. The flow we in a program in terms of flow chart, like before even start coding, when we are talking about software development life cycles, before start to code, we first of all create a algorithm, right? The first step is basic documentation and algorithm, and then in those documentations we decide this flow chart, and this flowchart is also part of algorithm design. So, and I'm not going to teach how to create a flowchart in this course, but definitely you guys can learn, and I can even arrange another session for this. But let's focus, let's understand this flowchart over here. So this is where a code starts. This code then runs to a condition, right? So this condition, if true, would run this code, right? If it's not true, then it's gonna run this code, right? The else code. And whenever when both of these are done, and either of these are done, then it would exit. So this is the most basic flowchart that we see. And start, before you code anything, and I would suggest that first of all you write an algorithm, and then you draw a quick flowchart to it in your copies. A quick flowchart, if you're using if else, if you're using for, if you're using anything, draw a quick flowchart to everything, and then you start by doing coding in your IDs, or in whatever you're coding in, right? So, and this is where that your if in a statement. Now let's look at the syntax, right? So basically, if syntax is pretty simple in Java, and you have an expression, right? You close this expression in parentheses, in brackets, and you place a if and a keyword and before this condition, before this expression. Then in curly brackets, you write your statement, right? So let's code something over here. I'm not code because it's going to cost me a lot of time, and then this lecture would be quite high. And first of all, yeah. So in this is, yeah, here it is, if else code. Right. So basically what this code is doing is it is telling whether the number is even or odd. Right. So first of all, here I imported a scanner package, right? And then I created a class from scanner class. Sorry, created an object of scanner class, right? So in here, after creating this in a scanner object, and this is basically non-primitive data type. So in I'm basically at liberty to put it as S or A or B or anything, right? So, and again a print statement to tell the user that what to do. And then there is, I created a variable, right? A variable n with an integer, and I have assigned it to an object, right? And next, so that it could read the statement, right? It could read the input to and store it to n. Now talking about if, like, again you have a condition, if an n modulus 2 is equal to 0, right? What equal to do is basically it is comparison operator, and basically it compares whether the n modulus 2, it has 0 0, or it is anything else, right? So if n modulus 2, that is another remainder
Please, bro.
n divided by 2. Sorry, Amit.
Can you zoom the code? Because I think it's not clear.
No, I can't. I tried, but no.
Use control plus.
No, I
Use
tried, but
control plus. No, no, no. Use control plus.
yeah, yeah, I tried that. It's not working. Is it fine now? Should I increase it more? Amit, is it fine now?
Yeah, bro. It's fine. But carry on.
Okay. So, yes, someone asked, someone told that if इसमें if else use होगा, definitely yes, if else use होगा इसमें. So, when you're using a modulus operator, it tells you the remainder. So, in this, the n divided and modulus 2, when n is divided by 2, the remainder if is 0, then this statement, the line number 13, is going to be printed. If it is not, right, and then in any scenario, this in a line would be printed, right? So let's do one thing. Let's use if else, right? If n modulus 3, right? If n modulus 3 equal to 0, right? And don't print this, no. uh, Print the number is by 3, right? And if this statement is false, then else, then system dot out dot print. So basically this algorithm is not appropriate, but in order to make you understand, and I'm using if else, right? So basically in a you might face many scenarios that where you have been given 2 3 conditions, right? So like in this scenario, if the number is perfectly divided by 2, then print this statement. If number is perfectly divided by 3, then print this statement. Or in any other scenario, print this statement, right? So let's run this code now, and let's check 2. It's saying the number is even, right? Run it again. Let's check for 3. It's saying number is divided by 3, right? Now let's check 5. The number is odd, right? Now what would happen if I type 6? Tell me what would happen if I type 6? Guys, come on, be responsible. What would happen if I type 6 over there in console? Which statement would run? It is saying number is even, because in a this the line number 13 would in a go first, right? Because in a this first condition is satisfied, so it would exit this if else statement, it would exit this condition statement, right? So in a this was the basics about if else. Now in a if I talk about nested if else, right? So in nested if else, let's take an example, right? Because in many, okay, there's an example available on GitHub. Okay, I would upload that in a, so in nested if else, basically it would be used in scenarios when you have condition under a condition, right? So that is where nested if else would be used. And suppose, let's say, in this conditional statement, right, if the number, if the n is let's say if n is divided by 3, right? If n is perfectly divided by 3, then it would be not. We all know that it would be not. Let's type it for not, not. Then system print f4, right? And the else statement I would give there is their else statement. Else, let's run this code and let's check for 4. It's printing the number is 4, right? Let's check for 8. It's printing the both statements, right? But if I remove this first statement, then it's directly going to switch to the nested condition, right? So this was your basics about if else. Now keep going and keep practicing. And in next class we are going to discuss about while loop and for loop. So and if you have any doubt, ask. Amit, are we done here?
Yeah, Krishna. I
Oh,
think, but right now there is no question.
no
I think.
questions
So
no questions are asked right now, so
yeah, yeah. So we can end up the session.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.